We just finished today's Beyond the Gates. Let's jump into it. We open up back at Naomi's house. It's been one long day in Fairmont Crest. And I realized that when when we see Nicole later on, and she's wearing that great backless white suit. She put that on the morning that Danny walked in on her and Kyle about to get busy in her bedroom. That was sometime last week. A long day. But we're okay with it because the Kill Bill story is in full gear. More characters are being pulled into it. And Catlock remains dedicated and on the case. So we resume with Danny, Kat, Naomi, and Chelsea. And they're talking about the fact that, that morality clause that Naomi has in her prenup with Jacob, that she can't imagine that Bill would not have put the same clause in his prenup to Haley. Someone wonders, well, maybe Haley objected. And Danny says no, she's not stupid. She knows that would have raised a red flag. So they still think that it could be possible that she's cheating, but being really covert about it. So Naomi decides that she's going to go over to Bill's law firm because there's probably a copy of his prenup in his office. And if she can take a look at it, then she'll have an answer about the morality clause for sure. So she heads out over there. And I think it was Chelsea who makes a comment that, they're talking about the morality clause, and I think it's Chelsea who makes a comment about Bill not having cheated yet, which, Danny's like, Danny's like, well, actually, boy, when that secret comes out, it is going to be a bombshell if it comes out in the right way. Kat, meanwhile, is like, well, maybe we can do a stakeout and we can plant cameras and we can catch Haley and Randy Sammy going in and out of hotel rooms. And Danny is like, well, if you could figure out a way to do that, that would be amazing. Catlock is on the kit. Kat is the only one who's thinking. Now, of course, it's hard for any one of them to really follow Haley around because they'll know that she's being followed by them. I don't know why they're not thinking about hiring, a private investigator to follow her around yet. Maybe that ding, ding, ding light bulb will come on. But but Kat is the one who is actually thinking. Kat, being the Sabrina of the Charlie's Angels, is the one who is like, okay, how can we prove the thing we need to prove? And here's what we could do. And she's thinking about it. At least I appreciate Naomi being active today and not just sitting there going, well, I doubt that he would cheat, or maybe she's not cheating, or she wouldn't cheat with somebody just because they both happen to be from Philadelphia. I'm glad that Naomi was activated today and she actually goes down to the law firm. We'll talk about that later because I have a little bit of rant to go in about that. But Jacob arrives. Now, Jacob had been with Isaiah earlier, and they were talking about Eva and how Eva and Isaiah have not been intimate because he's afraid of hurting her. But, it's been a while. So, so there's that. We'll also circle back to that in a little bit as well. But Jacob comes home and he sees all these Dupree women in his home, but Naomi's not there. So he's like, well, what are you guys doing here? And Chelsea's like, I already got kicked out of my father's house. I hope I'm not getting kicked out of my sister's house today too. And Jacob was like, no, what Haley did was wrong. No way. But, what's going on? So he's like, you guys are all in a room together. What are you plotting? So, Kat gets a phone call from Tomas because he's back in town. We'll talk about Tomas. So she leaves so that she could go see Tomas down at Bill's office. Chelsea, and Danny leaves with Kat. So it's just Chelsea and Jacob. And Chelsea is ready to spill the beans about their plot, but ultimately she doesn't because Naomi eventually comes home. Now, while Naomi is over at the law firm, Caroline is in Bill's office. They talk about Bill and his health a little bit. And, Naomi, encourages Caroline to keep on Bill about, to be another voice in Bill's head. Caroline, and then Naomi uses the cover that, because Naomi pretends that she thinks Bill is there, but she knows he's working from home. So she says, oh, you know what? He did some paperwork, some depositions about Madison's case. I think I'll go over them. So Caroline's like, oh, of course, I'll just leave you here. So she gets behind Bill's desk, gets on his computer, and she does a search for Bill Hamilton prenup. Well, just as she's typing that in, Tomas walks through the door, and he has the nerve to be like, what are you doing sitting at Bill's desk? I want to know what junior associate has the gall, the unmitigated gall, to question the daughter of the firm's owner and senior partner about why she's there. It's not like it's the first time that Naomi has been in Bill's office alone, or sitting at Bill's desk. Tomas, and the thing is like, I don't know if the writers don't remember that they only promoted Tomas to junior partner. So, like, he is not in the chain of, he is not in the hierarchy of chain of command where he could question anything, let alone the daughter of the owner about anything. But of course he comes in hot. Naomi's like, look, dude, and I really want, Naomi, today should have been the day that Naomi checks Tomas. But of course we didn't get that. We got, listen, I'm not interested in working at my dad's firm. You have nothing to worry about. Tomas is like, oh, I'm sorry for coming in hot. I was away and, I wanted to just check in on things. And Naomi's like, what you need to be checking in on is Kat. So that's what made him call Kat. Because if not for Naomi, Tomas would have been doing whatever he was doing at the office. I got to tell you guys, and I want to be somewhat gentle when I say this, because you never know who watches the video and who sees the video. But I have an idea of what they're trying to do with Tomas, but because I get it. I have the vision of what they're, based on the dialogue and based on what the dialogue they've had him have in the episodes that he's been in. He's been gone for like a week and a half, but I get what they're trying to do. I think I get what they're trying to do with him. The issue is this current incarnation isn't working, and it's not going to be what they're trying to do isn't going to be successfully accomplished. And I say this gently, they need to recast, because if I'm understanding what they're trying to do correctly, the right actor could make Tomas like a firebrand, could make him like just tear things up. But the interpretation that this particular actor has of the character just brings scenes to a screeching halt. Like the scenes just hit a wall. And it's not working. And you guys have given it the good try. It has been over a year and a half. I guess maybe a year and a half, a little bit over a year and a half. You've given it a good go. And, I don't know, maybe he's completed all of year 2. I would say that if that's the case, as you're planning year 3, and if your plans include Tomas, you gotta start looking at other actors. And but I would say if you test them with Colby, if the plan is to continue having Tomas as a love interest, because that's the other thing. This version of Tomas just does not work with Kat at all. And he's in scenes like today. He was in scenes with 2 incredible actresses in Kat and Naomi, and the scenes came to a screeching halt. Just not great. Now, a compliment I will say is that his face glowed when he was in the hallway on the phone talking to Kat. You guys know I love that hallway set that they have at Bill's office. There's a window there, so the lighting team always does a good job of making sure the lighting is appropriate for time of the day and the way the lighting hits the actors and hits that space. So that looked great, but like this Tomas just isn't working. And if you're not going to recast, you just have to cut bait. And this might be an unpopular opinion, but in their current versions, Derek should still be around and not Tomas. That's just the way, that's just the way I feel. Anyway, when Naomi gets home, so Naomi leaves, she abandons her mission. And Tomas then walks around. And the other thing is, like, what junior associate is just so relaxed and, like, just walks into his boss's office without knocking. And then and is always just in his office, like, looking through stuff. That's the other thing. Like, Bill needs to check him on that as well. So when Naomi leaves, Tomas walks around the desk and looks at the computer, and so he's curious as to what Naomi was doing, because she uses her cover that she was, working on the Madison case, and he's like, well, why didn't you use your own office? It was like, dude, you work for the Hamiltons, and Naomi is a Hamilton whether you like it or not. And if she decides that she wants to, and which I've said that they should do, is have Naomi merge her law firm in with Bill's law firm so she can still do the save the world stuff, but also do the work with Bill on cases like the Madison lawsuit. And it just would work better, because a lot of viewers have a hard time ever believing that Naomi is a lawyer, because she's always working out of Orphe jeans, or like one time she was meeting a client at the country club, which was weird because she's doing save the world work, and or she's at the hospital, the police station. It's like, just share the set with Bill and Naomi. That would just make the most sense. Tomas is afraid that Naomi's presence hampers his ascension at the firm. But dude, like, there are again, Tomas is a junior partner. There are other people ahead of you at the firm for your ascension. Even if Bill were to retire today, you are not in the line. Like, you are very low on the rung. So it is a bizarre thing. Like, it is just bizarre. And also, didn't Bill tell you to bring in new clients and all that jazz? And have you done that? So it's like, why are you worrying about Naomi? Why are you worrying about Naomi when you should be worrying about bringing in new clients and proving yourself that you can actually bring money into the firm? I hate Tomas. And again, I just think this current version or this current interpretation of him is not working, but I have a vision for that character. I think it's and I think the writers have a vision for that character, but the execution in the performance just isn't working. So Naomi comes back home and Jacob is there, and Chelsea has left. So Chelsea leaves. So it's just Naomi and Jacob, and Jacob's like, well, what's going on? So Naomi fills Jacob in, and he's like about thinking that Haley's having an affair with this guy named Randy or Sammy who works for Joey Armstrong. That puts bells off in Jacob's head, and he's like, I think we should compare notes. So they compare notes off screen. When we come back to them, Jacob's like, well, what we have is a lot of circumstantial evidence, but I'm in. But my concern is that, he's like, I'll help, but like Danny and Kat are wild cards. Now, here's the thing, Jacob. Kat on her worst day is a better detective than you are. If not for Kat, Chelsea would still be lost in the woods. Chelsea would be having anniversary wedding cake with Allison in the woods, because it was all Kat that helped save Chelsea. Chelsea was strangling that girl with those chains around her wrists by the time you got there, and probably would have choked her out if you hadn't gotten there sooner. But it was Kat finding that key to that locker, whatever it was, that storage space, it was Kat. Now, Kat has an issue with chain of evidence. Yes. But Jacob, like, cool, slow your roll when it comes to Miss Cat. Our catlock, if you will. So again, we've now pulled Jacob into the Kill Bill story, which is smart. He's not a great detective, but he has access to resources that they might be able to use if they're using their brain. Now, the person that should be talking to Jacob is Kat, because Kat could be giving him directions of what to do. Hey, you need to do a background check on Haley. You need to find out whatever information. You need to use like whatever computer systems you can use to find out, like, does Haley have any criminal background, like speeding tickets, like whatever you can find out on her, you need to find out. Kat needs to also pull Smitty in officially, because Smitty can do background work too. He probably knows some reporters in Philadelphia that can pull some records and find out who this Haley, I don't think we know what her last name was before Hamilton, but who this Haley person was. And all these people were like, no, Haley is coming back in the system. She doesn't exist. So I'm hoping that, you know, this is the road they're leading down, but it's going to take Kat's brain, because among the group of non-Cat locks, they're sharing one cell. Okay, so over at the country club, Bill and Haley are still having their lunch, and his hand is shaking. She's gone to the restroom. She comes back. She wants to go to St. Bart's, but Bill says, I don't think this is a good time. You know, he finally confesses that he collapsed, and so she, you know, was like, oh, you should have told me. You know, she's feigning concern. So they're not going to go. But she's like, well, maybe we can go to a local beach. And Bill's like, are you trying to wrangle us buying a beach house closer to home? Yes, she is. Because she wants all the stuff in her name. And then she eventually gives him a mocktail, which, you know, so because she's like, well, in your condition, I don't want to give you alcohol. Now, I'm assuming she poisoned the mocktail on her way back to the table, but who knows? And I'm assuming we didn't see that, because maybe I missed it. So if she did, you know, poison the mocktail, please let me know. We have Danny shows up, and she has a great line. She says, Haley's clinging to something that belongs to me, and I want it back. Bill assumes she's talking about him, but she's actually talking about the sunglasses. Haley has the sunglasses, I guess, on her, and she gives them back to Danny, and they're broken. And Bill's like, I'll pay for them. And she's like, I don't want anything from you, but just to let you know, Haley, the Dupree girls are here to stay. So Danny has been having some delicious dialogue lately, and I really appreciate the writers bringing us back to the original version of Danny that we met a year ago when the show premiered. I'm liking, not that Danny ever lost her fire, but again, like a lot of these characters that were firebrands, that had a lot of spark when the show first premiered, like Leslie, like Joey Armstrong, like Danny, like Bill, have been somewhat muted over the last year. But I think in year two, they've done some, they've really kind of gone back to the drawing board and like, okay, what made these characters special in the beginning? And it's working. Like, it really is working for them. Let's see. Oh, Eva takes Noah to Uptown for a first day of work dinner on her. He had a successful first day because of course he did. A patient overdosed and he gave the patient, I think, some Narcan, and so he saved the day. Leslie is there somehow. I don't know how she popped up. She's like a witch. She just popped up and she's like, I was right about him. I was right about Noah. And then she brings up the liver transplant. Noah didn't know that Eva had recently had a liver transplant. Eva is bored at home. There's too many people hovering. And And Isaiah comes to the table and he's like, am I one of those people? And she's like, no, you're a great caretaker. But he's like, you've had a long day. I think I should take you home. They try to get Noah to leave too, because they don't want him stuck with Leslie. But Noah doesn't get the hint. And he's like, oh yeah. And I think Noah, he's like, well, she's the boss and she wants to eat with me. So I guess I should eat with her. So Noah stays behind. Eva and Isaiah are like, well, we tried to get him. We tried to warn him. That's all we could do. So they leave. Leslie and Noah, she's hyping him up about his talent as a musician. She says she has an eye for talent. And he's like, oh yeah, your mother was a musician. So they start talking about Barbara and how she was kicked out of the Articulettes. And she blames it on Anita's betrayal. And Noah's like, I met her and she seemed very nice. And then, but Leslie continues to, it's an act, and Nicole is the same way. She will betray. And Noah's like, well, she seemed really nice to me. So Leslie is actively poisoning Noah's mind against Nicole and Anita. But then she has this curious line. She says, Anita owes me some favors so I can get you in with her to help jumpstart your music career. What favors does, Anita, you got a trust fund, and Anita, has been cordial to you. What favor? So I need to, I want the writers to explain to me the new and improved Leslie that has turned over a new leaf. Because since Eva has been released from the hospital, we have not seen a new and improved Leslie. I guess the explanation is, or could be, that once she was finally rejected by Ted, and he told her that he was never in love with her, even though he had told her he loved her when they were having an affair. Maybe that was her, she's going back to her villain origin story. But I think we missed something because she just told Ted, don't come crying to me when your relationship with Shanice falls apart. But so we don't have a new and improved Leslie. She's still delusional, and she thinks, she's telling Noah, making promises to Noah that she really can't keep with Anita. But again, I do think that Noah will play a part in Anita's music comeback story, because we do see that this week Anita has some frustrations about singing and at her piano in the house. So I do think that the reason they brought a musician onto the show, they created the musician character when they created Kyle, one of his sons was a musician, so that it would play into Anita being able to get her voice back post-cancer treatment. That's my guess. And it seems like that's the way they're going. But again, we'll just have to tune in to see. Nicole is in her office wearing her fabulous white suit. It's a good thing she doesn't have to deal with patients that bleed or anything, because that $5,000 suit would be all messed up. Carlton comes in. He's been away. He's been a visiting professor at Banneker. Okay. And he's like, I want to come over. Can I come over tonight? And she's like, I'm really tired. I'll take a rain check. So he's like, oh, okay. And, so he leaves. And then, Kyle comes in after that. So Kyle and Carlton don't run into each other, but Kyle comes in and she smiles. She's really happy to see him. And he was supposed to be going somewhere. He was supposed to be going on one of his, excursions. But it got rescheduled. So, they're both tired from all the sex they had last night. So Kyle is planning on staying at his place. So, and he's like, and Noah, and so Nicole is like, oh, did Noah find a place already? And she's like, no, he can just sleep on the sofa, and maybe that will give him some motivation to go find his own apartment. Why he couldn't sleep on the sofa while Kyle still lived there, I don't know. But anyway, Nicole is like, you know what? I don't want space. I want to sleep next to you and wake up next to you, even if we're not doing anything. I just really got used to sleeping next to you. Nicole, everybody's been telling you, and I'm telling you, you've made a choice. And I think, that's going to come into play later in the week, according to the spoilers, but you've made a choice. Now, so Kyle and Nicole end up leaving together. leaving the hospital together. They're at the elevator bank. No nurses around today. No Ashley, no Shanice. So there's no I love you conversations. But as Kyle and Nicole are waiting for the elevator, they've got their arms wrapped around each other. Nicole nuzzles her head into Kyle's, shoulder, and Carlton sees it. So Carlton's like, oh, he doesn't obviously have any dialogue, but, you can read his face. It's like, oh, like she said no to me tonight, but she's leaving with him. So he knows what's up too. And we know that from the spoilers this week, there is going to be a conversation about the status of Nicole's relationship with Carlton, and then Nicole wanting to redefine her relationship with Kyle. Let's see. Kat shows up at Bill's office, runs into Caroline in that hallway. Efficiency of using a set. So remember, like when they're using a set in an episode, they've got to light it. They've got to do all the things, right? They've got to get it ready. They got to make sure it's, dusted and cleaned and it's lit and all the stuff. The mic, it's the sound, all the stuff, right? So instead of just using that set for that one scene with Tomas on the telephone with Kat, they also had Kat run into Caroline in the hallway, and and she's like, Kat. And Caroline's like, oh, Bill's not here. And she's like, oh, no, I'm here to see Tomas. Caroline doesn't even know Tomas is back. And she's like, he's back and he's in Bill's office. And Kat's like, yeah, I guess. So they exchange some pleasantries. Again, and I don't mean to harp on this, but it's a flaw in the writing when we have characters saying that Kat is spoiled and bougie and a brat. And she, because we never see her treating people like that. Like, that's how Anastasia treats people. That's how Anastasia's granddaughter treats people, Francesca, who we don't see anymore. But Kat doesn't treat people like that. The people who wealthy people would consider the help, the Monas, the Jans, the Junes, the Carolines, Kat is always cordial and polite and respectful to them. And I just need to point that out again, because I'd like the writers to stop including that kind of dialogue as a descriptor for Kat, because it's absolutely not what you're showing. And if you start showing it, then that's going to be a complete 180 on the character from what you've shown us from, 2025 to now. So don't do that either. So Kat goes into Bill's office. Tomas is standing there reading files in Bill's office. And it's like, well, what if it's something Bill doesn't want Tomas to see? This is where, there's a continuity issue with the fact that Tomas is a junior partner, but he has the attitude that he's higher up and more senior than he actually is. And I think it's a flaw in not, because they mention that there are other he beat someone else out for partner. There is a flaw in not having, and they fired Mike. Bill fired Mike, but there is a flaw in not having a partner show up every now and then. Doesn't have to have a story, doesn't have to have a ton of dialogue, but just so that we know that there are other partners. The other thing is they always mention this other character that Tomas beat out for the promotion. That should be, Naomi's not his competition, because Naomi can have whatever she wants when it comes to Bill. It is, and Tomas, there will never be anything Tomas will be able to do to convince Bill that Naomi shouldn't have a place at the firm if that's what Naomi and Bill want. His competition is the person he beat out, because that character should be doing everything she can to undermine Tomas. She should be bringing in new clients and new money and new and more billable hours, where Bill is like, hey, I promoted you, but the person that got passed over is doing more than you, working more hours, billing more hours, and bringing in more clients. That would make more sense, because even if Naomi joined Bill's firm, she would most likely still be a senior partner, and she has her own client list, and she would be bringing in her own clients. So Tomas, the competition isn't even with that person that got passed over for the promotion. The competition is with yourself, because you're useless. Anyway, Kat talks to Tomas. He talks about how his trip to PR reinforced that he needs to provide for his family. And that's noble. Like, I get it. I totally get that. Then he brings up Naomi, and Kat is like, what do you, like, she's not a threat to your career. He calls her a threat to his career. Kat's like, don't worry about Naomi. She's not after your job. And then they bring up Haley. Kat wants Tomas to help with their plan to bring down Haley, but of course Tomas, being the coward that he is like, no, because Bill will be mad at the messenger and he'll get over it with you and Naomi, but he'll fire me. And this is where I have a problem with Kat and Tomas being together, because whenever Kat is with Tomas, Kat's personality shrinks in the presence of Tomas. And I need these women on this show, these wealthy, powerful black women, to have wealthy, powerful partners. Like Danny, Bill wasn't wealthy or powerful when she met him. Kat and Tomas, Naomi and Jacob. You've got Ted was a doctor, so and I think his family had some money. So okay, fine. I'm trying to think of who else. Chelsea, at least she's with a doctor. At least she's with Madison. But even like Martin, like he's with a reporter, and we don't know much about Smitty. So, and not that, there's nothing wrong with being a journalist. Love journalism. But none of the people married to, except like Chelsea's marrying a doctor, but none of these other characters are marrying in their station. And I know that sounds like, snobbery or elitist, but it's just a weird, it feels like, especially with the women, it feels like they're trying to keep the women humble by having them involved with men who are not wealthy and powerful. My take. It's just weird that none of them are, even like with Danny and Andre, he's wealthy because of his parents and, the inheritance he got from his parents. He's a successful photographer, but Danny still has way more money than Andre does. So it's just kind of like this, it's just this kind of weird dynamic. And I think it's because of misogyny. That's just what I think. I think it's because of misogyny. Now over at Eva's house, Isaiah and Eva start making out, and she wants to move forward with him. He's asking if her scar hurts, and what we learn is Eva is embarrassed by her scar. She doesn't want him to see it, and Isaiah's like, well, to me it represents the miracle that you're still alive. And she's like, well, I never thought of it that way. And he talks about them having their happily ever after. I think that's an anvil dropping, that something is about to happen with Eva and Isaiah. We do know in the spoilers that that's like something's happening with Eva. So here's where I am with the scar. I think they gave the self-conscious scar issue to the wrong character. I think Kat should be the one who's self-conscious with the scar, because for Kat, it's a reminder of what she did for Eva. Right? It's a reminder of what she did for Eva. And, we know that hers was laparoscopic, so there shouldn't be like a huge scar. But I still think like if there's a person who's going to be self-conscious about a reminder of the liver surgery, it should be Kat. Because it's just one more constant reminder of something that she didn't want to do, that she was uncomfortable with, that she got bullied into. That would have made it a little bit more believable, because for me, it's like I was sitting through the scenes with Eva and Isaiah about the scar going, what? I was just it just didn't make any sense to me. So it really did not, that just didn't work for me. Chelsea runs into Caroline at Uptown. They're talking, and Chelsea's like, "Oh, are you meeting Haley here?" And Caroline says, "Oh yeah, we haven't been really hanging out lately. Nothing really happened between us, but we just haven't been hanging out." So Chelsea's like, "Well, who's she hanging out with?" And Caroline's like, "I don't know." And Caroline's like, "Why are you asking me all these questions?" And Chelsea's like, "I just want you to give me a heads up if you learn anything about Haley." So again, now we've brought Caroline. We've got Caroline orbiting the Kill Bill story as well, and we know that Caroline will do anything for Bill. So it's good. Like, this has turned into a really big, and you remember Anita was brought into it yesterday. Vanessa was brought into it as well. We didn't get a pickup of Vanessa and Randy today. So, I'm curious of how that's going to be handled in a future episode as far as what the conversation between Vanessa and Randy was. I'm wondering if Randy will recount the conversation to Haley in a panic. Okay. So I have to say, I did like this episode. I thought yesterday was good. I thought today was good. I think that they found, I think they've known this because we saw it a lot in early season 1, but this show is really special when we get episodes and stories that are Dupree-centric, because that's what, as an audience, we were initially sold on. And when they do it, so even like this Kill Bill story involving Danny, Nicole, Naomi, Chelsea, Kat, Anita to some extent, it just, now Jacob as an extension of a Dupree, Smitty as an extension of a Dupree. It just works. It's just so much more interesting to watch than watching, we don't need stories about Tomas. We don't need stories about Ashley and Grayson or Ashley and Derek that are A stories. They could be B or C stories, but they should not be lead A stories on the show. It's just unnecessary. Even I feel like I don't particularly like the Heather and the Heather aspect of Joey and Vanessa's story. We do know that Heather is going to meet, I think, either Danny or Nicole later this week. So I like that at least they're mixing her in with the Duprees, and then and then by extension it drags Joey into more of the Dupree universe, which makes sense. That's why I always say Joey should have leveraged being a hero during the tornado into at least a membership at the club, or he should have been able to buy a house in Fairmont Crest, and we should have Joey living in Fairmont Crest. That's where a lot of the action should be taking place instead of isolating a character like that in his casino room. But again, today's episode worked. Yesterday's episode worked because they were Dupree-centric episodes. That is your money. That is just your money. And, before you bring another new character onto the show that's related to Vanessa or Shanice or Kyle or Carlton or June, bring on a male Dupree, a cousin, a nephew, Vernon's nephew, somebody a man whose last name is Dupree, who can also produce new Duprees. So that the name, because remember, Nicole and Danny and Nicole changed their last names back to Dupree, but they're not having any more children. And if they did, those last names would be with, whoever the husband was. Chelsea isn't, she could have children. But again, she's a Hamilton. And Matt, and then, Naomi doesn't want to have children. Kat could have a kid, but she's a Richardson. So that, and that the last name won't be Dupree. You got to keep the Dupree generations alive. We're barreling towards the end of year 2, not a pregnancy or a baby to be had. It's time. So anyway, really good episode. I'm the pacing of Kill Bill has really picked up. I hope they keep it up. I'm really interested to see where they're going with it. And I will see you guys later. Remember, Ed Talks Television and Ed Talks TV.